Great. Hi, everyone. I think we're going to make a start now. So welcome to our When Silence Starves, an evening of literary solidarity with Gaza. Thank you so much for joining. Tonight is hosted by Books Against Borders, and we're an abolitionist, anti-colonial, and anti-capitalist political education collective. And our work centers communal education and the union of theory and practice in building radical futures. We're really grateful for you to be here joining us this evening, and we want to say a massive thank you to all the wonderful speakers that we'll be hearing from tonight. We firstly wanted to acknowledge that the purpose and the context of this event is very heavy, and the ongoing genocide and forced starvation of Palestinian people in Gaza is not something that can be tackled through financial donations alone. We want to encourage you, as well as donating, to participate in any and all actions that are available to you to help disrupt the global system that upholds the Zionist regime and supports violence against Palestinian people. But we also hope that the money raised from this evening um, can go some way to help providing food, water, and essential supplies that are vital to people in Gaza at the minute. So throughout the night, we're going to hear from a range of speakers with poetry and readings, and we'll introduce them and the fundraisers that we're supporting along the way. But first, we're going to introduce one of the fundraisers that we're raising money for, which is Bridge of Solidarity. So I'll pass over to Miles to introduce.
Thank you, Hope. And yeah, um, yeah, thank you, Hope. Yeah, I want to talk a bit about Bridge of Solidarity. So this is one of the organizations that we're raising money for with tonight, and that we would encourage you to please donate to either during this event or afterwards. Do follow their work. We'll share their fundraiser as well as their Instagram, where you can keep an eye on what they're doing. But yeah, so Bridge of Solidarity is an anti-capitalist mutual aid organization founded in Al-Mawasi, Khan Yunis, by Yazan, a young poet from Gaza. We will share some of his work. As a poet, he started this, he's been a teenager really when this genocide started. And, the work that he is doing and the people he's in community with really does inspire us. Their efforts are focused on the most marginalized in Gaza, those most at risk of dying, people without phones, English skills, social media, wealthy relatives, outside support, or any living relatives. Bridge of Solidarity seek to actively combat genocide capitalism with mutual aid and violent survival of the fittest ways of turning on each other with collective care. Furthermore, they emphasize the agency, privacy, autonomy, and dignity of those they are in community with, seeking to challenge the ways Palestinians are turned into a spectacle by the English-speaking world and the West more generally, and are forced into performing on social media in a pity economy and attention economy, always having to compete with each other. All money goes directly to people in need of support. Projects so far have included water distribution, providing plates of maftool, a traditional Palestinian dish, to medical staff at Al-Kuwaiti Hospital, and they're currently working on a project to reach elders in Gaza, particularly those living without any living family members, to provide both material support in the form of cash and messages of solidarity. And you can contribute to this and provide messages to be handed over through their Instagram page, which again, we will link to. We are all really incredibly inspired by the work Yazan and the Bridge of Solidarity team are doing, truly embodying the concepts of mutual aid and solidarity, not charity, and disrupting the capitalist logics underlying so much humanitarian work. Thank you all for donating so far to support that work, and please, please do continue to support their work and spread the word. I wanted to, just before we begin, read a couple of Yazan's poems. So one of these was written in a collection that can be found on Instagram that he titled Poems Written to Distract from Hunger. And I woke up in the prison of memories to the sound of birds caressing. So I said, go on, I'm not stopping you. They said, we came to learn to love from madness. I said, love in your way. Loving people is deadly. There is no game like the one you play. And another one that he wrote. What is the homeland? It is the longing for death in order to restore the truth and the land. The homeland is not a land, but the land and the truth together. The truth is with you, and the land is with them. Cool. I'm going to pass over to Kamila now. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining again.
Thank you, Miles. I'm going to be reading from an excerpt from a diary by Nahil Mohanna, who lives in Gaza. She's still there. You can find this diary and the works of other wonderful writers in Voices of Resilience that's published by Comma Press. This diary entry is dated January 16th, 2025. The ceasefire had been announced by then, but it hadn't yet come into effect. I go to the hairdresser despite the difficult circumstances and the dangers of walking in the streets. The occupation usually intensifies its raids just before a truce comes into effect, so I'm surprised by the sight of 5 brides, each waiting their turn, along with 15 other women here, to dye their hair in preparation for the truce. When women gather in one place, the conversation flows differently, and I'm reminded how women in my country have better skills than men when it comes to political analysis and predictions. The main focus of discussion is about the things we will do once the ceasefire comes into effect. The list is long. 1. We will say goodbye to the endless queues at bakeries. 2. We will have electricity. 3. We will get rid of the monopoly of merchants. 4. We will be relieved from the high prices of basic resources. 5. We will free ourselves from prayer clothes as an official uniform during war. 6. We will replace our worn-out banknotes. 7. We will stop walking long distances and instead go back to putting up with the arrogant taxi driver who annoys us with his heroic stories about securing diesel during the war. His fare will become 2 shekels instead of 7. 8. We will solve the problem of slow internet. 9. I will embrace air conditioning in the summer. 10. We will say goodbye to firewood, embers, grease, and lung conditions and welcome the return of gas. 11. We will smoke cigarettes and shisha again and be spared from the cursing in our streets as a consequence. 12. We will eat meat, chicken, shawarma, maftool, eggs, fresh vegetables, juices, and ice cream. 13. I will kiss my husband because I miss our moments together. 14. Our children will return to school and to discipline. 15. Families will reunite. The South will join the North and we will see our loved ones. 16. We will go back to drinking high-quality coffee sold for 14 shekels instead of 60. 17. We will no longer be devoured by drones. The quadcopter will be out of our lives. 18. We will mourn the martyrs and the missing with honor and dignity. 19. We will go back to walking in the streets without fear of shrapnel or going out and never coming back. 20. We will eat grilled corn on the promenade. 21. We will bathe under a shower. 22. We will light the streets at night. 23. We will stop following the news. In fact, one of the women offers to donate her TV. 24. We will go back to washing machines instead of hand washing. 25. I will bury my son, who remains under the rubble of the house.
Thank you, Kamila. We're going to now pass over to Suhaiymah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for organising this event and the introduction to the kind of framing of why we're here today. I'm really honoured to be part of this. So yeah, thank you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin with the name of Allah, the most compassionately, especially merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise is for Allah, the Lord of every created being. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. And I ask Allah to send His prayers upon the final messenger, Muhammad, his family and companions. I'm going to start with a poem that I wrote in 2024 now, the end of 2024. You might remember there was a story in the news about a young boy in the refugee camp in Rafah. He was called Hassam Alar. I actually don't know where he is. I don't know. I tried to Google earlier to find out the story about him now, or any updates about his life. But the reason he was in the news at that time was because they were calling him the Newton of Gaza, because he had created electricity within the camp or the tent that his family were in. So this is named after him. Hassam Al-Atar, 15 years old, makes electricity from broken things, teaches that damaged is only illusion, and shattered is only exterior, that light can be made in even the darkest of places. You can crumble the buildings, but never the souls. You can take the land, but not the martyrs. And for every body buried, there will be a soul set alight with the fire of resistance. They're calling him the Newton of Gaza, but he is the Hassam Al-Atar of the world. Make him the barometer, make him the reference point. For Newton's inventions weren't made under the rubble of Western financial interest or the wreckage of corporate media's allegiance to colonial occupation, no. Hassam Al-Atar reminds us to question every first. For Newton was merely the Ibn al-Haytham of England, the Ibn Sina of Europe, and likewise, before 2023, before Israel, it was 1936 British planes dropping evacuation notices on Palestinian homes, burning them to rubble by the afternoon. Before Nakba, before Israel, it was 1920 British Palestine police flying in counter-insurgent paramilitary used on the Irish, now for the Arabs, teaching torture techniques to Zionist forces. Before Netanyahu, before Israel, it was 1938 Britain's Charles Taggart, constructing fortresses and prisons learnt from India's suppression. So much for the freedom of the West, rights and liberty. 2025 now, do we not see, is not the Hassam Al-Atars of the world who are unfree, but we, shackled by mock democracy, thousands ignored on the street every week, Labour Party government more intent on preserving profit of war than money for heating and feeding the poor, bombing the brave who stop ships at sea, detaining the disruptors of weapons factories. It is not they who are in darkness, but we. After all, it is said that the angels see places where God is mentioned on earth the same way that we see stars in the skies. If that is the case, then Gaza is a constellation. Gaza is a nebula. Gaza is a lightning strike in a world of wave upon wave of dark. So when they call him the Newton of Gaza, let Hassam Al-Atar remind us that we need not value minds by proximity to whiteness, will not value lives by proximity to whiteness, but if we were to, I have never seen a people more enveloped in it. White sheets stained with blood, white body bags, white phosphorus, white sacks of flowers severed by bullets, white rubble, white smoke, white ashes, white dust, white flags snipers seek out to shoot, white kitten clinging to a little girl, white carrier bag carrying baby boys' limbs, white bandage, white gauze, white noise, white ambulances crushed by the strike of the drone, white medical uniforms slain in the road, white pages of Qur'ans fluttering out of bombed mosques, white clouds of rain filling cold skies, white beards on wizened men, white bowls held out for food, white tents, white placards, white roofs, white lies, white glaring lights, pure, pristine, innocent, white genocide. Hassam Al-Atar laughs when they call him mischievous. He says he just likes to make something out of nothing, light out of the dark. God grant us Hassam's mind, God grant us Hassam's heart, and God grant us his realization that sometimes all that it takes is a spark. So I'm going to move from my own writing. Funnily enough, I'm also I also wanted to share an excerpt from the book that Kamila just read from, Voices of Resistance. I've been really blessed to, I suppose, become friends recently with Batul Abu Aqil, who is Abu Aqleen, who is one of the writers of this these sets of diaries, and she's a 20-year-old woman who has survived this genocide to date, and it's very surreal to hear her voice notes, watch her videos, and I suppose just try to fathom living in the same world in this moment, as I know we're all trying to fathom all the time. But I asked her today if I could read a part of her excerpt, and she permitted me to. So this is also from January 2025, just as the ceasefire has been announced. Our neighbor Hassan says, "I've never seen Batul so excited and happy." I tell her, "I've always been like this, Hassan, but the war extinguished my joy." I show Wala my old photos. I ask her insistently, "Wala, did I look different before the genocide?" She answers, "Yes, your face was clear, but now it's covered in pimples. Your face was glowing, but now it's dim." Everyone's appearance has changed. They've lost a few kilograms, gained a few more. Their faces have darkened. They've grown older. But I've remained more or less the same. And I don't really know if I'm happy about that. I want this pain to be visible. I don't want to have to explain it. I remember my childhood reading about great poets and writers. A common refrain in every writer's biography was, "He survived such and such. He lived through such and such a war. He was almost killed by such and such." I always imagined my future in those terms. Could I become a great writer, facing death without succumbing? My father laughed when I shared this daydream. "Isn't From the Heart of the Gaza Siege enough of a biography for you?" But we're living normally. I mean, these people were facing death. I laugh at how seriously I took this idea. In a way, now I have died. But does death add a special beauty to poetry? Or is it just the terror death creates, makes everything written in and about it sacred? Either way, I've gone from being the pampered daughter of a father afraid to let her go farther than Tel Al-Hawa, a neighborhood in Gaza City, to a woman fending for herself with a broken heart. Tomorrow, the genocide will end, and 10 days after that, I will turn 20. Food prices are starting to return to normal. I still can't believe it. I'm crying as I write these words. Tonight, I will sleep for the last time whilst we are being exterminated. Just a few hours left to endure before we can start over. When I return home, I mean to the north, for we no longer have a home. I want to close my eyes the whole way. I want to go blind, to embrace my father without sight. I want to tell myself, my grandmother is still here, but I don't have time to visit her. Dr. Rafat is running late for his classes, so I won't see him on the steps of Building N. The university is still here. I'm just too tired to go today. My body aches because I'm sick, not from sadness. This house I'm staying in is just a temporary place while my father paints our home. My belongings are still there, and so are my clothes, but I'm tired, so I won't bring them now. And Huda is still here. We just had a small disagreement, so I won't visit her today, but I still love her, and I'll see her again soon. In fact, they're all waiting for me. I'm just tired. A little tired, so I've postponed their visits for another day. Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much. We're also just going to link Shadows Collective, who are raising a fundraiser to help launch a performing arts club in Gaza. So we'll have that in the YouTube link in a minute. So Shadow is a non-profit collective in Gaza, and their goals are to utilize performing arts as a medium for expression, psychosocial support, and cultural resistance. They focus particularly on helping supporting marginalized communities and children, and they hold performances in public spaces, in schools, in community centres. To carry on their work, they need more financial support, and they want to officially set up their performing arts club. If they can hit their target amount, you'll see that on the link when we put that on the YouTube in a second. They can reach 2,000 children and sort of diversify their geographical reach. So yeah, that'll be going up again in a sec, so please check that out and donate what you can. Next up, in terms of speakers, we have the White Kite Collective, and we're delighted to have so many of their members joining us this evening. So White Kite Collective are a group of artists and culture workers. They formed in response to the genocide in Palestine in 2023. They organise cultural events to bear witness to what is going on, and also to galvanise people into action to resist the genocide and the actions of Israel. So since their founding, they have organised over 20 events, and they featured, as I alluded to a minute ago, a wide array of authors collaborating as well with various activist groups. So they've done work, for example, with Palestine Solidarity Campaign, Black Muslim Collective, and London for Sudan, showing again, I guess, the intersectionalities of our struggles for liberation. Without further ado, then, we've got many members of the White Kite Collective with us. I'm not going to introduce them all individually. I'll let you guys do that yourselves. But yeah, we're really excited for you to hear you read out your work and your poetry.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having us. So we are White Kite Collective. We are, as was explained, a diverse grassroots group of cultural workers. We formed in urgent response to the ongoing genocide in Palestine. We bear witness and we galvanise to action through testimony, literature, and collective discussion. We stand in solidarity with all people seeking liberation from global systems of oppression.
We've been organising events across theatres, cultural spaces and protests in the UK since November 2023, and this is actually our first online contribution, and we are able to welcome some of the voices who we've been featuring, whose work we've been featuring with us live today. So it feels very special, and we're honoured to be here and in solidarity with you all. Our evenings are a mix of poetry, literary extracts, music, interviews, and first-hand accounts emerging from Palestine right now. And we spend time carefully co-curating and curating the content, much of which won't have previously been translated or shared aloud. A number of us are in communication with our brothers and sisters in Gaza, and we've had long-standing collaborations with some writers that you'll hear from this evening.
So we either theme our events, for example, the Nakba, or we dedicate them to a particular group, journalists, medical workers, prisoners. We also invite activists from across sectors and backgrounds to speak, as we believe in connecting up the arts to the wider liberation movement. We practice political acts of solidarity in action, and all of our events are also fundraisers for mutual aid groups in Gaza, Tilal or Shadows, as was explained to you, being an example of one of those. And that is one of the groups highlighted tonight. We have been in partnership with them for quite a long time. Please do donate to them if you can, alongside the other fundraisers.
We'll continue honouring these words with action accompanying them always. We invite you to resist with us in any way available to you, from the river to the sea. تفضلي هبة.
مساء الخير جميعا. الصوت تمام؟ اوكي. هلا انا رح احكي شوي تقديم يعني عني، وراح اترجمه خوليا رح تكون معنا. انا هبه الأغا، ناجيه من الاباده. قضيت في الحرب 200 يوم ونزحت على مصر بعد 8 أشهر أو 200 يوم تقريباً. أحكي أكثر خوليا مرة واحدة؟ أوكي. أنا بشتغل في مجال تدريبات الكتابة الإبداعية والتنسيق الثقافي، وأنا كاتبة. وطبعاً من أهم الأشياء اللي إحنا بنعملها بالحرب هي إنه إحنا نضل نكتب، لأنه مش رح نفقد الأمل أبداً في الكتابة. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Sher, and I have the privilege of translating Hiba today. Heba Al-Agha is a survivor of the genocide. She spent 200 days in the genocide with her family, and then they were forcibly displaced to Egypt, where she is now. She works in creative writing and cultural coordination and is a writer. And she wants us to know that one of the most important things we can do during this war, during this genocide, is to keep writing.
يعني رح أحكي قصيدة نص عن الجوع وعن علاقتي بأمي طول الوقت، لأنه يعني بعد ما طلعنا من غزة، يعني أنا طلعت لوحدي مع عائلتي الصغيرة، لكن تركت خلفي أمي وإخوتي وأصدقائي هناك. تراوغ أمي الوقت، تراوغ أمي الوقت، تخفيه في كفيها تارة، وتحت شالها المزركش تارة أخرى. تغسل أمي الوقت حين يداهمها الحر، أو تلبسه قميصا صيفيا، ثم تدرك فجأة أنها لم تعد في البيت. تقارع أمي الوقت فوق عريشتها المؤقتة، تجدله حين تشتاق لنا كأنه شعر بناتها السبع، وتطعم الوقت أمنيات كانت لنا. تطهو أمنا الوقت حين يجوع إخوتي، وتضع التوابل، ثم تصيره طعاما يبلل شفة اليبس، وتنادي على الأجساد الهزيلة في العائلة على طبق كبير من الوقت. تقول أمي: سيكبر الوقت، سيبتلعنا في لحظة ما، سيأخذنا إلى مشاعر، سيمر من بين أصابعنا ومن فوق رؤوسنا المطهوة، سيمر من بين أصابعنا ومن فوق رؤوسنا المطهوة، ومن تحت أرجلنا الثقيلة. سيمر الوقت وسيشرب من دمنا، ولن يعد صالحا للطهي أو المراوغة. وكما قالت فيروز، بيقولوا الوقت بيقتل الحب، وهنا في عريشة أمي، في خيمة أمي، يقتل الوقت بقايا البلاد. شكرا.
Hiba just read a poem that she wrote recently, which is about hunger, about starvation, and about her mother, because Hiba was able to leave with her immediate family, but she left everyone else behind, her mother, her siblings, her friends. So I will now read Hiba's poem. My mother evades time, hides it in her palms or under her embroidered shawl. She washes time away as the heat overwhelms her, or dresses it in a summer shirt and then suddenly remembers she is no longer home. My mother wrestles time on her momentary mat. She combs it when she misses us, as if it were the hair of her 7 daughters, feeding it the wishes that were once ours. Our mother cooks time when my siblings are hungry, spices it into food that can moisten dry lips, and serves it on a platter for the families emaciated. My mother says, time will grow up. It will swallow us in a moment. It will walk us to its pastures. It will pass between our fingers and over our cooked heads and under our heavy feet. Time will pass, and it will drink of our blood and no longer be fit for cooking or evasion. They say time kills love or so sings Fayrouz. And here in my mother's tent, time kills the country's leftovers. Thank you.
Hi all, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Emile Saba. I'm a theater director from Ramallah, Palestine, and I'm the artistic director of a theater called Ashtar Theater. A message from me to the free people of the world. To the free people of the world. I'm a human being from Palestine, from a place on this earth called Gaza, a name now bound to endless pain. I'm an artist. I have never carried a weapon. I carried a brush and kept painting life amidst death so that my heart wouldn't collapse. But I'm also a father trying to steal moments of warmth in a storm of fear, trying to draw a smile on the faces of his 3 daughters while the walls tremble and the ground splits beneath their feet. Every night, I hold them close, wrapping their souls in mine. I invent colorful bedtime stories because reality is only fit for tears. I hide the sound of drones with songs from my imagination so they won't know that the world has chosen silence as we burn. I try to separate childhood from war. I try to build them a small world of stories while the real world collapses above our heads. Every time a home is bombed, it's not just stones that fall. A memory is buried, a dream is uprooted, a candle in a mother's heart is blown out, a picture on the wall, smiling, is shattered. And yet, we do not surrender. We rise from the ashes. We band-aid our wounds with patience. We carry on, as if joy is still possible. My message to you, do not let our screams vanish into the world's silence. Do not let our tragedy be reduced to a passing headline. We do not seek pity. We seek solidarity, dignity, and shared humanity. Raise your voices with ours and say, enough death, enough injustice, enough silence. To everyone who marched for us, who wrote, who painted, who sang, who cried from afar, you are more than allies, you are family. You are the hope that cannot be bombed. From the heart of Gaza, from beneath the rubble, I write to you, not asking for rescue, but demanding justice. We want to live with dignity, to love, to draw, to raise our children in light, not smoke. And if life is denied to us, then let our deaths bear witness, and let you be witnesses to the truth. The voice of Palestine will not be buried, and the voice of the free will not be silenced. Your brother in humanity, Ahmed Adawi, Palestine, Gaza.
Ahmed Adawi is a visual artist living in Gaza, and he's in touch with us with the White Kite Collective. And we asked him if he would like to contribute to this evening, and that's what he wrote, especially. And this is from Khalid Asad. Khalid Asad is a 20-year-old writer and blogger from Gaza who we're also in touch with. He asked us to tell you that his words are not just writing, they're a cry from the heart of a besieged land. Through his poetry and reflections, he carries not only his own voice, but the voice of his people to the world, believing that words can resist silence and fight against forgetting. I'm Khalid, writing to you from Gaza, not as a storyteller, but as a boy with an empty stomach and a heart heavier than the rubble. Today, I need to explain something the world often gets wrong. I'm not just hungry, I'm starving. There's a difference. Hunger is when you miss a meal. Starvation is when your body begins to forget what food feels like. I don't cry because I want food. I cry because I don't know when I'll eat again, because I watch my little siblings try to sleep to the sound of their own hunger, because my mother pretends she's full just so we can have her share. This isn't only poverty. It isn't just war. It's a system designed to break us, not with bombs this time, but with emptiness. Silently, slowly, deliberately.
Hi, I would like to introduce Hossam Madhoun, who is a writer, an actor, the artistic director or a co-artistic director of Theatre for Everybody in Gaza, and a child protection manager at Man Development Center. Hossam evacuated from the genocide in April of last year from Gaza, and he is in Egypt at present. Since the beginning of the genocide, we had the honor to share his extraordinary diary pieces, of which there are over 100 from his time there. Since he has left, we continue to share his writing and also the writings of others and testimonies of others that he shares with us from people still there in Gaza, his family, his friends, his colleagues, and other people. Hossam's work has been shared in many cultural spaces, both here and in Europe and America, and in some collections of other work. And I would just like to pass to Hossam now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rose, for this introduction. And to be honest, I don't have much to say about myself anymore. So I will go directly to read those pieces, which I was honored to translate and to share. It is testimonies from artists, from writers, from normal people inside Gaza, trying to post what they feel and what they go through under the genocide. Just maybe I would like to share a little thing. Now my niece, the son of my brother, was contacting me on WhatsApp to say that there were bombing on the neighbors, where 3 of my family has been injured, my sister, my brother, oldest brother, and the daughter of my second brother. She's only 11 years old. It is luckily slight injuries, but there were 3 neighbors killed in that bombing. That was like 1 hour ago. Sorry for that bad news, but this is part of what our people is going through all the time, in every single moment under this genocide. I will start reading these 3 testimonies, small testimonies from people from Gaza. The first start with, in my dream, I saw myself grieving for my children's hunger. So I said, in my dream, I'll go to the sea, try to catch some sardine. And there I stood by the water, casting my line, only to pull out a large fish with a small one beside it. I clutched the big fish tight, while the little one slipped back to the water. Then I stood there, shouting in triumph, hugging the big fish, delirious with joy, when the vision ended. That was Abdelmajid Oriqat. The second part said, as you bite into a loaf of bread made from spoiled flour, you try hard to ignore its foul taste and revolting stink. Then suddenly, a worm, or maybe a cluster of them, writhing at the heart of the bread. You push them aside with practiced indifference and keep eating as if nothing happened. Other times, you might not even notice them at all, swallowing them whole without realizing. Thanks to God. That was Ahmed Abu Amrin. A father from Gaza said, praise to be to God that my children were martyred and did not live to endure the famine. I say this with all the shock it carries for you, even though it defies every law of longing. If I told you that part of what consoles me for the tragedies that followed their departure, I do not hear my son Malik's plea, Daddy, I'm hungry, like the fathers in Gaza here today. I don't see my daughter Yasmin sleeping hungry like Gazan's children today. I do not stand helpless, powerless to provide them with a loaf of bread, as all fathers do now. Yusuf Sharaf. Thank you for listening. These were 3 small testimonies from normal people from Gaza.
Thank you, Hossam.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Hossam, and for joining us. It's a complete honour, and as Ruth said, we have been reading your words now for almost 2 years, and Hossam has sent us the most extraordinary testimony since the start of the genocide, and we are currently seeking to try and help him to publish it into a collection, as we believe it is work that deserves, well, not only is it evidence of the genocide, but it is work that deserves to reach a wider audience. This is Sami Shahu, to the soldier who points a gun at me. Sami Shahu is a teacher in the West Bank in Palestine. To the soldier who points a gun at me. You think I'm here to die? You think that's all we know how to do? Bleed, bury, break. But listen, I grow things. Tomatoes in rusted cans. Hope in children who don't know what the word means yet. I build walls, stories, mornings. I fix roofs with one hand and hold my daughter's hand with the other. And you? You carry a gun like it's your purpose. But I've seen men become ghosts long before the trigger is pulled. You call this land a threat. I call it history. The call to prayer, the school bell, the pot of lentils boiling over. Don't mistake my softness for surrender. I do not need to shout to be strong. The fig tree in my yard has stood through 3 wars without raising its voice. You, with your steel and fear, your borrowed power, you patrol streets looking for danger and miss the beauty flowering between the cracks. You fear death. I fear forgetting how to live. So if you shoot, know this. I wasn't born to hate. But I won't vanish to make you comfortable. I won't flinch so you can sleep easier. I am not your victim. I am not your enemy. I am the reminder that even under occupation, a man can love too fiercely to be erased.
Akram Surani is a writer from Gaza. This is Gaza High School exam questions. Now, while high school students in Gaza lost the ability to attend high school exams for the second year, so it makes them stuck with no horizon to continue their future, continue their education. Akram Surani, a Palestinian satirical writer, wrote this imaginary high school exam and published it on his Facebook page.
Write what you know about the shape, size, price, and colour of fruits, vegetables, onions, potatoes, and cucumbers.
Describe the smell of fried eggs. When was the last time you ate your own eggs?
Write what you know about the skills of stealing tents and aid supplies, as well as the art of lighting firewood and LEDs.
What's the difference between Emirati, Qatari, and UNICEF tents in terms of numbers of flies in each?
Calculate how many hours you can walk barefoot on scorching sand from the tent to the bathroom and back.
How many times have you gone to the bathroom without toilet paper? And how many times have you gone to the bathroom without a bathroom?
What's the difference between the sound of fava bean cans, kidney bean cans, and the sound of your stomach after eating lentils?
If you still have teeth, do you brush them with sand or seawater?
When riding a donkey cart, is it true that if the donkey farts in your face, your hair turns copper-coloured?
What's the difference between a clay oven and a sharp stroke Toshiba microwaves, and how does that affect cooking dough?
Write about what you know about the sociology of displacement.
How can you tell the difference between lice and dandruff? How do you help your mom pick nits from your sisters and the neighbour's daughter's hair?
How can you distinguish between calf liver, lamb liver, and the hepatitis-infected liver served in shelters and food lines?
Write what you know about tearing apart family ties and the impact of tents on disappointment and marital relationships.
What's the difference between voluntary and forced migration? And what's your opinion of the poet's words, "If a people one day demand life, then they must migrate"?
Write what you know about dealing with colic and diarrhea amid water shortages, internet, gas, and phone signals.
How can you tell the difference between losing your humanity and losing your phone battery charge? And what's the relationship between war and selfishness?
If you can withdraw 1,000 shekels in cash with a 99% commission fee, how much will you actually transfer to the bastard on the app?
What's the price of flour in your area? And have you ever stolen a bag of flour?
Do you miss chicken breast or lamb chops? And how many times a day do you dream of them?
Pass the following sentences. Hunger is an infidel. We are all potential beggars.
Do you prefer to be steadfast or to be sweetened with sugar?
We wish all Gaza High School students success and congratulations.
Happy second year in a tent.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm Hanan Habashi. a genocide survivor myself. And I'm reading two pieces, short pieces. They're not poems. We can say they're personal accounts of grief. This year, I keep thinking I'll be as old as my older brother. I'll be his age when his life was taken away from us. I've grown older, but what breaks me the most is that as I'm aging, this grief hasn't. It was never given its time to be fully felt. I lost my dearest brother and sister 20 months ago. They were killed in November 2023, 3 days apart. Two tragedies hit us hard, but as a family, we have not properly mourned them. Because how do you grieve something that is not over? Gazans understand the violence of grief that is forced to wait. Nothing feels heavier than grief, still hanging in the air. Grief that is scattered across space and time, creating multiple solitudes. Grief that needs to be grabbed, embraced, crushed, cradled, looked in the eye, deciphered, smashed. Grief that is not sealed or buried, not finished or quiet, just breathing between us, waiting for the moment we can finally hold it together. Anger is what I'm allowing in. Anger is eating me up. And part of me just wants all of this to stop so I can finally recline into myself and be with my loved ones fully, without them worrying where the next rocket will hit, without them having to think so hard about how to survive, without me interrupting their attempts with my restless prayers and my half-hearted virtual presence. And maybe when their sky quiets, when the earth stops shaking beneath them, we will finally sit together, not in fear, not in anger, not in scattered grief, but in the fragile, aching wholeness of a love that has waited far too long to be grieved. A second shorter piece. I cannot look up anymore. I look at the ceiling and I see it collapsing on my sister and her children. I look at the sky and see it cradling the machines that burned children in their sleep. I do not look up anymore. The moon fills me with familiar dread. A drone might be watching me as I venture to seek beauty in the middle of a war-stained night. It's not war here. But I rush my glances. I rinse myself clean of hope. I cannot forgive the ceiling. I cannot forgive the sky. I cannot forgive the moon. I cannot forgive hope. Thank you.
Margot Nassim Tabaki is a queer Palestinian-American interdisciplinary performance artist, poet, and writer. Palestine is a futurism, prophecies, cruising Jerusalem. Miracle makers, we touch heaven with our toes. Heaven looks like us. We build our own futures. We build them to look like us. No soft power over us. Radically redefine what it means to be us. Our slingshots are a collectivism. Our fishnets are a Nostradamus. Return is a future, is a past. The past is a future we return to. Sunspot taste as we rise on. Science resist as we hex the world. Only the end of the world for us. Only the biggest us we can build. In the land of no states, I will lick your eyeballs. In the sleep of no documents, I will kiss your iris. The soil retains its ideologies. The soil turns them into batatas. City wall lean against, I stroke your stubble. tunnel walkers, we dissolve any military, an undeclared end to all declarations. The sun has set on the British Empire, on the American Empire, on the empire of Goldman Sachs, on the empire of military contractors, on the empire of eviction enforcers, on the empire of hunger consultants, on the empire of securitization, on the empire of possibility eaters. Inside a poem, we found a tunnel. Inside the tunnel, we found ourselves. We liked our taste. We tasted our collectivism. We remembered the land was already a Marxism. We remembered our names and the art of making new ones. Lay down your arms and I will lay with them. Make me the strings of a gutted piano. I will rive and make the song of our only nation. Return is an ontological dance step. The birds are teaching us to stay. Future is a dirty batata. Every day we are saying no to the things that keep us apart. Every day we are saying no to enclosure. Every day we are cruising Jerusalem. Every day Jerusalem is cruising us back. Palestine is a futurism. Futurism is an expansiveness of understanding. Futurism is a demolition of monuments. Futurism a rioting cactus. Palestine a relation of loveliness. Futurism is a Palestine. Palestine is a system of care. Care is a futurism of hands. Futurism is a Palestine. Palestine is already here. Palestine is already everywhere.
Thank you so much to the White Kite Collective for sharing all of these deeply personal, moving, and powerful pieces. And thank you to everyone who have joined us this evening. We have so much gratitude to all of you for sitting here and reflecting with us as we're processing this genocide together in solidarity with our friends and families who are undergoing and trying to survive that now. I am here to introduce Raed, whose family is one of the families that we are supporting through this fundraiser this evening. He is actually, I believe he's joined us on the YouTube from Gaza. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us on Zoom. So what he has done is he sent me a voice note, which I will play and then translate for you. Just a little bit about his family and their situation is that they're based in the north. They've been displaced several times. Their home has been completely reduced to rubble, and actually just a couple of weeks ago, the Zionist occupation told them that it was safe to return to their neighborhood, only to bomb them. So they had to flee again, barely surviving that attack. Raed himself is a teenager. He had 1 year left of high school left. He was so looking forward to going to university, but obviously all of that has been completely ripped from under him. So I will let him introduce himself through this voice note. Hopefully it works okay.
احنا أسرة مكونة من 6 أفراد. كان والدي يعمل قبل الحرب، كان يشتغل في الجرافيك ديزاين، كانت حياتنا بسيطة. كان في مال، كان في حياة، كان في عنا بيت. لكن بسبب الحرب نزحنا من بيتنا لعدة مرات، وبيتنا تم تدميره بشكل كامل، وخسرنا كل ما نملك. خسرنا بيتنا، خسرنا مالنا، خسرنا حياتنا، خسرنا أعز الناس لقلوبنا. خسرنا ابن عمي، خسرنا كثير شهداء من العائلة. الحمد لله على كل شيء. حاولنا كثير نتواصل مع مؤسسات، نتواصل مع جمعيات إنه يقدموا لنا الدعم وأي شيء إنه نصمد. كثير ناس كانت ترفض وكثير ناس كانوا يعطونا وعود ويأجلوا لنا في الموضوع. تواصلت مع صديقتي ياريا قبل فترة وبصراحة قدمت لنا الكثير يعني، حاول تقدم لنا كل فترة وبشكرها على هذا الدعم منها. شكرا ياريا، شكرا. وكل واحد بدعمنا مهما كان الدعم بسيط، مهما كان الدعم قليل، راح يفرق معنا ويفرق مع أسرتي.
And I will now read out what he said roughly in English. Hello, peace be upon you. My name is Raed. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Gaza. We are a family of 6. My father used to work in graphic design, but because of the war, he lost his job. We also lost everything we owned, our home, our money, and even the people dearest to us. Due to the war, we no longer have the means to survive. I reached out to my friend Arya some time ago, and honestly, she has supported us and helped us keep going. I hope you can support us too. No matter how small, even a little help can make a difference. Thank you all. I should mention, this is a new fundraiser. The family has not had any help, or they didn't have, contacts outside to support them with a fundraiser. We've only been able to raise just over £100. So your help would be really, really appreciated. Raed's also asked us to share a video that he recorded of his house, or what was left of it, in his neighborhood, which he has set to an excerpt of a poem by Mahmoud Darwish called The Mosque Has Fallen. So I'm going to see if Miles might be able to share.
أخلاؤنا أسماؤنا لا مفر. سقط القناع عن القناع، سقط القناع. لا إخوة لك يا أخي، لا أصدقاء يا صديقي، لا قلاع. لا الماء عندك، لا الدواء، ولا السماء، ولا الدماء، ولا الشراع، ولا الأمام، ولا الوراء. لا مفر. سقطت ذراعك فالتقطها واضرب عدوك، لا مفر. وسقطت قربك فالتقطني واضرب عدوك بي. فأنت الآن حر وحر. قتلاك أو جرحاك فيك ذخيرة فاضرب بها، اضرب عدوك. لا. أشلاؤنا أسماؤنا لا مفر.
I'll pass it on to Tom. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say it's more than an honor to share this space with so many extraordinary people and Palestinian voices and people that have survived the ongoing genocide. And I want to thank the organizers and everybody watching. I'm going to read a long poem called Parliament of Jets that was written last summer in the Lake District, which is one of these places that sort of encapsulates Englishness. And I was just watching American fighter jets practicing flights over there. And that spurred this poem. And it starts off with an epigraph from the bird watcher and environmentalist from Palestine, Saeed Shomali. And it says, "If I die, I worked for Palestine and I worked for the birds." A Parliament of Jets. Between mountain pines, prickly pears, the River Jordan and Mediterranean Sea, olive-rooted hillsides and military checkpoints, each spring, millions of migratory birds fly over the occupied territories of Palestine, where settler violence soars under the state's armored wing. Unwavering naturalists and birders risk detention and brutalization to document the visitation of swifts. Anyone spotted with a camera or binoculars awaits questioning. Only drones are permitted optical advantage. One risks existence to witness a kestrel return to its nest in the West Bank's limestone cliffs, for daring to understand life outside its immediate context of devastation. Low-flying American-made jets rupture atmosphere, rumbling over fells at regular intervals, shoving thunder into ears, overthrust cotton buds, disarming engines to barrel roll over pikes, superseding buzzards and other raptors in preparation for a future war. In Elta water, a lone jay swoops through mossy enclaves. There is more spilled blood in Gaza than drinking water, where native sunbirds wet scimitars on ambivalent light. No snipers scope out our white bodies, resisting soil and air in this recreational environment, constructed and purchased by Englishmen to preserve national identity, though rivers, fields and moorland are dry stone enclosed, allotting authorised strips of managed land through which to ramble with a semblance of sublimity. I walk queasy with romanticism below the military-industrial complex mimicking avian flight. Types of aircraft that may be seen in the area include F-15 Eagle, Typhoon FGR-4, Hawk T-2, Hercules and other helicopters. Semantic damage, naming combat aircraft after birds, a predatory metaphor. The F-15 Eagle boasting hundreds of victories in aerial warfare, with the majority of kills claimed by the Israeli Air Force. More aircraft have been totaled by collision with white storks, pelicans and other large birds gliding over settlements than through enemy conflict. Empires indulge in hands-free massacres, alienated from ground blood, to enjoy this aerial display without cowering in ruins or a designated safe zone is a privilege, where sound signals nothing but precision in the colonial sky, under which a farmer leaves his pasture to inform us of the next Hercules flyover, and not to bold trespass, red as fresh steak. No one is free, but some are less free than others. Cleaving valley air for insects, these swifts and swallows likely pass through Palestine on migration from wintering grounds in Africa to European breeding grounds, excreting amputated memories mid-air, trauma transported like a parasite on the wing. I don't see that there should be separate words for politics and nature. After Chernobyl, Brits were discouraged from drinking water from rivers, gills and tarns. Ukrainian clouds absorbed radiation before shifting to glide over our island, raining unknowables and acid into open water. Of Cumbrian radiation, only 50% came from Chernobyl. The rest blossoming from nuclear bomb testing, the Windscale fire of 1957, and routine discharges from Windscale, now Sellafield in the 60s and 70s. Local and global intersect, overlap in landscape, double exposures, still circulating blood warmed in flight over the West Bank, a complication of chiff-chaff, nestle in wooded tracks, whittled by colonial wealth. We hear the same discursive boom of the F-15 between the Langdale pikes as echo above civilians in the largest open-air prison, reduced to collateral in the everywhere war, despite which migration hasn't halted. Birds still visit the occupied territories, instilling hope to the displaced, though they become harder to observe. New checkpoints, roadblocks and gates. This is not just a country of war. Birdwatching, a counterpoint to death, bombing and killing Finch glimpse of normality. F-15 Eagle, Eastdale, Israel. Langdale Isgl Lang Israd Real F 50s East Lang East is F 15 Palestine. Relentless aerial bombing and military ground invasions by Israeli forces have mutilated Gazan ecosystems and natural environments. Imperial ecocide, settlers burning agricultural land, ancient olive trees and Palestinian crops, white phosphorus in the soil, the environment a victim, contaminated with munitions and toxins. We are so close to this unspeakable atrocity through screens, swifts, and fighter jets, their war-reminding presence between the ridges of scars in a fantasy of wilderness, that other place, whirling inside my cortex, underneath this place, a Geiger counter, chorusing, radiation's ghost. I can hardly breathe in the hushed green air. Dry stone walls and hedgerows are the stories we tell of the rural. Visible patterns of ownership and usage etched into the landscape, checkpoints for marked subjects. We can't imagine land outside that context. A failing empire out-violences its past. Here, in the land of teasels, touch me not balsam and foxgloves, binoculars aimed at this hedge's black cap, like a thing at rest, stress balm chirping with its inly muttered voice before flying away without a threat of contrails or noise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say a huge thank you to Books Against Borders for the work that they've put into organising this fundraiser. I wanted to read from a book called The Time Beneath the Concrete, Palestine Between Camp and Colony by Nasser Abderrahim, who is an academic working on comparative colonial history, anti-colonialism, carcerality and encampment. I chose this work because I read it out loud with a group of people recently, and I think it's a beautiful and really poetic resituating of the question of Palestine as inseparable from the refugee camp and the resistance that takes place in it. I think he directs us towards this idea that settler colonialism and occupation are also strategies of temporal dispossession, as well as theft of land, people's sovereignty, and their statehood. So this is from the very beginning of this book. Introduction, camp/colony. In the open time of dispossession, the camp is the issue. The primary claim of this book is a simple one. To read the question of Palestine, we have to read the camp. The camp is the issue. In one sense, this rhetorical statement, often repeated in the refugee camps, operates as a straightforward metaphor. The term al-Qadiyya, issue, cause, or question, is shorthand for the question of Palestine. And the refugee camp, this statement says, is just another name for this question, Palestine as camp. As such, one can read it as saying not only that displacement is still the constitutive Palestinian experience, such that we Palestinians is always at some level we refugees, but also that all Palestinians are encamped one way or another. Those who live in Israel proper as formal citizens, but not nationals of the Jewish state in constricted towns and villages, many of which are legally unrecognized and denied basic infrastructure, those under long-term military occupation in the enclosed cities and villages of the West Bank or the entirely besieged Gaza Strip, or those living stateless or as second-class citizens in permanent exile in the surrounding states. The camp is the issue because all are effectively encamped. All live in the permanent temporariness of camp time, with varying degrees of extraterritorial dislocation and extra-legal vulnerability. Camps within camps, abutting or within a larger voluntary encampment, the settler colony itself. But there is something else in this statement, beyond the figurative and not always helpful movement of the camp image as metaphor or synecdoche. There is an insistence in it, I would argue, that the question of Palestine remains, at heart, a story of colonial dispossession. In the early pages of The Question of Palestine, Edward Said wrote that among the different ways we use the English word question, one important sense implies the persistent duration of a problem. A question is often something long-standing, intractable, and insistent. The statement, "the camp is the issue/question," urges us to locate that sense of temporal persistence at a particular point. It urges us to read this duration of intractability from and in the camp itself. If the camp is the effect of an ongoing and contested dispossession, and if dispossession is the modus operandi of the colonial, then what this statement in effect does is call out the issue for what it still is. For encamped refugees, once the backbone of the national liberation movement, but now the principal losers in the geopolitical restructuring of the occupation regime, still somehow called the peace process. The statement insists on a reckoning with the open history of the foundational violence of the settler polity that cannot be sutured through the indefinitely deferred promise of Palestinian statehood. It is a rhetorical move that insists on the openness of the time of dispossession. The camp is the issue, not because it represents or marks anything outside of itself as a paradigm or exemplum, or because it can stand in for a larger whole, but because it is materially and politically installed at the center of the ongoing history of colonial struggle in Palestine. At the center of this book, then, is the claim that we can tell the story of the Palestinian question by telling the story of the camp as a political object. From and through the camps, we can approach the heart of this story. And this is my main argument, as not only a struggle over land and its dispossession, but also a struggle over historical time itself. Thank you. I wanted to also quickly just read a poem that I wrote. This poem is called "Even If the State Makes It So." And I wrote this poem as a way to kind of resist the idea that history is finished. I wrote it as a kind of refusal to act as if the fates of whole people, including the Palestinian people, are already decided. Even if the state makes it so. If not by bomb, then by starvation or disease or immiseration, cultural or then by displacement, crumbling measure, infestation or death by winter, death by summary execution, friends, death by changing season, by loss of the tongue, limb, by the performance of the loss of tongue or limb, by the destruction of the gravestone, archaeological dig, the library, then if not by ambivalence, then joyful participation in slaughter, death by rhetoric, or put simply, point-blank range by settlers turned soldiers, death by confinement or obfuscation, pathology, or death by the page, the author was murdered, surveillance drones named like fauna, or then the virus, death by the body of work that follows infanticide, death by the word that won't travel in the air, or by darkness, then stuttering rubble, death by sorrow, death by vacant and vacated viable solutions, destiny reclaimed. By that continued sickness, diasporic mysticism, dripping saccharine, limping inept, stupidly inchoate awe. Rebind revolutionary sentiment in response to, they are circling my building. Refuse to admire the levity of the steadfast. From the ministry of imperial forgetting, repeat with blood. Death is no inevitability. Repeat with blood. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. بدي أسلم على ناسي في الأول. وين ما كنتوا أهل فلسطين، وين ما كنتوا أنتوا فلسطين، بدعي لله إنه تكونوا في الخير يا رب. الخير تلاقيكم وين ما كنتوا إن شاء الله. I just wanted to say hello to my people first, wherever they are, wherever you are still Palestine. Palestine is you, and there is no Palestine without my people. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to the organizers. This first poem is called Vital Organs. I adore your kind eyes. Like mine, they squint through rain to see the colors of light souls colliding with hearts worth more than material. I am your rib, arms outstretched to cover around and protect vital organs. I know I give you trouble, shooting pains down your left arm and chest where your treasure lies, my head. Kind eyes are the closest you'll ever get to crying, because it was the last thing you shared with blood before you knew they were dying. Memories as warm as the sand of Baghdad's 1950s. Your sisters and Mama and Baba made home outside of a home there. The first generation of the Nakba begins. I know I give you trouble. You tell me I don't appreciate. I understand. As a man, how often is it you get to raise a family when you're a refugee? Status, chasing papers and validity. I came right on time. Home never seemed fragile because I never felt bombs rock me to sleep as my mama sang a lullaby, and a prayer never seemed so urgent because you were always there. Sacrifices, I never knew real sacrifices, because there's a difference between living life present and being ruled by the past's truth. So rather, it's not a sacrifice, but a reality I choose to take. I can't hold you forever and feel your buried pain. In the same boat, for tears are one thing my eyes cannot contain. Dripping down, they'll fill our mobile home, causing us to drown in our deepest, bluest sorrows. There's still hope, for your wisdom has kept you afloat. I look up to your kind eyes to see eyelashes like arms outstretched, beating away to unhardened hearts. I see blue skies. I'll test these waters in search for shores. Baba, I can swim. You can let your daughter go. I wrote that poem probably around 9 years ago. I'm third generation out of Palestine. Grandparents left, and when I read it now, it makes me think of how many generations of stories are just like this. To get to raise a family when you're, how many people get to raise a family when you're a refugee? This next poem is after a St. Lucian poet by the name of Derek Walcott. The poem is called, by Derek Walcott, is called Names. And this poem I've written is called With Pebbles Under My Tongue. They drag my starved body across sharp tongues of earth, then said it was our fault because we stood as roadblocks to the entrances of our neighborhoods. Students occupying campuses like refugees in their own land. Snipers and Israeli-trained police bruising bodies from towers to building walls with shields so they can call it self-defense, then commission books on history in the field. With a truth that cannot be swallowed, on the tips of tongues, even when a baton threatens to turn the other cheek, our chants are teaching the detained world real freedom of speech. El-Jidar, the wall, is our children's first words. El-Jundi, the soldier, is our children's first words. El-ihtilal, the occupation, is our children's first words. Our youth learn the actual names of what they see. Leaders and governments learn lies to get a politics degree. Where humanity's guilt left out of DEI training, like spoons clanging against empty pots and final messages on charred hospital walls. We excavated bones during their peace talks in well-lit press conferences, deliberating if murder was a crime, seeing as it was never their loss. Al-Muqawamah, the resistance, is on our teenagers' tongues. Al-Sijn, the prison, is on our teenagers' tongues. Al-Shaheed, the martyr, is on our teenagers' tongues. They turned our cities to sand and fear our children will start digging tunnels to play. Universities and lecturers pummeled to the underground, resentment lodged like bullets to be spat out. They report us by many names for catapulting the remains of their shrapnel back when it's their savage mouth that sprays wounds that sever limbs, like separating families that have been running since 48. Feet flying and falling, feet tap dancing a staccato escape from the sound of machinery till it reaches a buffet. Gaza, Lebanon, Urdun, Iraq, Kuwait, till the sound revisits like a ground invasion or a memory. Their glass houses sit on a hill for a better view to watch, betting on rubble to crush my jaw. Forgetting I've always had pebbles cocked back under my tongue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tasneem. Thank you, Lola and Tom. And yeah, truly thank you to everybody who has spoken tonight, who's contributed something, and everybody who's watching and has donated. It really is so much more than an honor. And to have both survivors of this genocide, people who have lived in Palestine and gone through so much, yeah, to hear and be in community with all of you, as I say, really is such an honor. I'm going to talk just briefly now about another one of the fundraisers that we're raising money for tonight. So this is for a friend, Iman, and her family, and I'll be just sharing some details about that. This is a fundraiser that Imam is a friend of mine who I've known for a few years, since before this genocide began, but even, 5 or 6 years ago, all of our communication was disrupted in ways that anybody who is familiar with people in Palestine knows what, and particularly in Gaza, knows the difficulty in maintaining that kind of relationship. We have been raising money for Iman since the genocide began, or since we kind of like started speaking about that together. We did actually have enough. Initially, our plan was to evacuate her. Just that her parents insisted that they wanted to stay, but she wanted to be able to support her family, and so we were raising money to evacuate her. When we finally kind of had enough to do that and started that process, it was pretty much early May 2024, and as we finally kind of had those wheels moving, the Rafah crossing was closed, and Israel's escalation, one of the many escalations that we've witnessed over the past 2 years, made that impossible. Her family currently in Al-Mawasi, and I thought the best thing to do, and well, just before that, our fundraiser, in that kind of momentum of building up towards evacuation, there was this kind of like clear goal, and we were making enough money to do that. But since those plans crumbled, kind of so has the momentum behind the fundraiser, as have so many fundraisers. And again, this is why what we were talking about with the Bridge of Solidarity campaign, I think, really factors in, and how performing and kind of suiting kind of needs that humanitarianism tends to, and particularly capitalist like charity kind of gravitates towards, really just doesn't work, and it's not liberating for anybody. And it forces into this kind of like economy of ups and downs, and the reality is that in the past 6 months, we've barely raised a couple of £100, which again is why I'm so grateful for everybody who has contributed to this tonight. I wanted to just share snippets of some of the messages that we've exchanged that she's asked for me to share with people, and just so I'm just going to read out some messages from Iman. Our struggle isn't just about the killings. The war has many dimensions. Famine has hit the strip severely, aid trucks are stolen, and then they allow only a very limited selection of food to enter. When the food arrives, the prices are still so high that we have another war to fight. Our children are suffering from new kinds of diseases, and the healthcare system has been destroyed. The doctors are doing their best. I've witnessed every one of them in the medical point where I volunteer. While they give their hardest efforts, they are unable to get food to sustain themselves in the summer heat. My mother is suffering from various health complaints, but she has to suffer in silence because we have no other option for her. My niece has health issues from the bad environment that will take a long time to heal. Her brother was dying for a piece of bread because there was no food in the market. He should have started kindergarten at the beginning of the genocide, but he couldn't. They are using education as another weapon of war. The severe heat during August is hitting us in our tents. The insects are biting us, and of course, scabies, an infectious disease for my brother and the rest of the family in turn. On top of this, we are struggling to survive financially. I lost both my jobs. My remote part-time job was impossible to do because of the internet connection and constant power outages. I lost the job because they couldn't transfer payments to the strip. My previous payments are all still pending, and platforms like Payoneer, where I used to receive my money, blocked my account at the start of the war. Our mental health is not what it used to be. We are living and waiting for death at the same time, and while we are expected to carry on with our lives normally. We're supposed to buy stuff triple their prices before, while none of the family are employed. The miserable life we're having is not only a result of Israel's actions, it is a result of a world that has failed to do the bare minimum to end this genocide. People outside the strip don't have the full context of what's happening anymore. Some of them choose not to, while others simply don't have the opportunity. On one hand, this is due to media restrictions. On the other, it's because of us, the Gazans, who are no longer able to express ourselves as we did before. At the beginning of the war, we were able to talk about our suffering, but that suffering is incomparable to what we're facing now. This inability to express myself as before is yet another heavy burden I must carry. I sometimes ask myself, why do I have to speak about and document my suffering while I'm living it? She asked me, please tell the world that we had a land and no one stood with us to keep it. We had lives and dreams we wanted to achieve. At one point, I spoke to her about having spoken to people in Britain who have been imprisoned for their actions supporting, calling for solidarity with Palestine and calling for an end of the complicity of the British government. And she said that she hoped more individuals can take real action as soon as possible. Every single moment, we lose beloved ones, home, and honestly, ourselves. We'll share her fundraiser on the YouTube, and we would just really appreciate any support that people can provide. And yeah, thank you all again. We're going to hear from a few more speakers for the remainder of this evening. Really honored again to be joined by them, as well as everyone from before. So next up we have Lisa Minerva luxx, and Rachel Spence. And yeah, thank you again.
Hi everyone. I'm going to start on a poem that is in the book Heaven Looks Like Us, which is a new anthology of Palestinian poetry that was out by Haymarket. And there's a poem in here by Ahlam Bisharat, and it's called How I Kill Soldiers. Colonial soldiers, what have they been doing to my poetry all these years? When I could have easily killed them in my poems as they've killed my family outside poetry. Poetry was my chance to settle the score with killers, but I let them age outdoors, and I want them to know decay in their lives, their faces to wrinkle, their smiles to thin out, and their weapons to hunch over. So if you, dear readers, see a soldier taking a stroll in my poem, trust that I have left him to his fate as I leave a criminal to his many remaining years. They will execute him, and his ears will execute him as he listens to me reciting my poem to grieving families. He won't be able to slink out of my book or the reading hall as the seated audience stares at him. You will not be consoled, soldier. You will not even as you exit my poetry event with slumped shoulders and pockets full of dead bullets, even if your hand, tremulous as it is from so much murder, fidgeted with the bullets. You will not produce more than a dead sound. So I want to talk or think or meditate on political imagination as an act of dignity and refusal to surrender. And for that, I'm going to read a small passage from Why Do We Go to War, which was an essay written by Bassel al-Araj, who was he's a writer and a pharmacist and a freedom fighter from Bethlehem. And he was killed in 2017 after like a 2-hour shootout with Israeli soldiers. And he'd famously said, you want to be an intellectual, then you must resist. Otherwise, you and your education are useless. And this is what he wrote in Why Do We Go to War? I will tell you something about war and romanticism. When Napoleon came to Egypt, he was encountered by the Mamluks with their long mustaches, their Sicilian swords, and their vessels and shields on their horses. Only a few moments after it, the bullets and cannons of Napoleon filled the ground with Mamluk bodies. So at that time, and up until recently, most historians, intellectuals, and authors describe the mentality of the Mamluks as primitive in comparison to that of the modernist Napoleon. And they have attributed exaggerated stupidity and naivety to the Mamluks. But I see things from a different perspective. I can see that the Mamluks were aware that they are only a few moments away from their certain annihilation, and yet they refused to welcome that quash with open arms. Do you know what it is like for a person to be raised their whole life on the values of knighthood and bravery, and then someone comes in and tries to take all that away from them? The Mamluk knights knew that, and they refused to give up on the romance of confrontations, knighthood, bravery, and death. So I wanted to actually read a poem that I'd written about some comrades of mine who have become known as the Filton 24, who took action to shut down the war machine from the heart of empire, to pull up the mechanisms of the war machine from its root here in the United Kingdom. However, I know that if they could hear me doing that, they would be really angry at me for giving them a voice in this and taking up this small amount of space that I would have had to read a work from Gaza. So all I will say on that is that all of this that is happening, this repression, to all of us who are here, our very commitment to the Palestinian struggle, it shakes the root of empire, and that's how we must recognize the prisoners, and we must continue amongst ourselves to stand tall enough to be shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian people in this liberation struggle. And with that, we must refuse to surrender. We must refuse to surrender our spirit and our political imagination. So I'll end on a poem by Jawad al-Akkad. So this is a book called Leading the Songbirds from the Slaughter. It's from a book called Leading the Songbirds from the Slaughter, which I've been editing with Hassam Alar, and it'll be out by Safajul Press in the coming year. And it's by a poet who is still in Gaza now and has written this collection since the start of the genocide. And this one's called A Night of Peace. Had I known that 2 days separated us from the massacre, I would have been more profound in making love. And we would have created our legend on life, taking longer and larger doses of kiss. So if the warplanes barraged in on the mornings of desire, you would unleash the wet of your exhales to cape the night sky with roses. Death dies, unable to resist beauty, and I embrace your tremors as a night familiar, a night of limbs, not warplanes. My pulse pacifies your sleep, your somnolence drawn out as shivers. I have the power and a million tricks to shelter you from the wilderness of my sobs. I do not fend away the sound of death as it grips its victim's heart. I am a lover damned. I do not die before I take the kiss of life from a lip that spews words like shrapnel. Let my death be a song. And so, for all the confrontations, all the political imagination, and all the romance, please do donate more than you want to all of those fundraisers that we've shared with you. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I'm truly honoured and humbled to be here tonight. Thank you so much to the other speakers and writers for contributing. I'm going to read a poem of my own. It's called Nocturne for Gaza. I started writing it in September 2023, before this genocide began. And then as the months went on and the genocide continued, the poem became what it became. I wrote most of it in the middle of the night, and I, at the beginning, kept thinking, there'll be a ceasefire, they'll stop this, someone must stop this. And of course, they haven't, it hasn't stopped. Nocturne for Gaza. Moleskin nights, tender as footnotes. I'm with my father in the holy city. The moon a keyhole to another world. Deserts beneath ice. Cassock black reefs carving stars into deep time. Kisses from the Pleistocene. Snow geese pecking summer frazzle. Whispering, you never know, miracles happen. Unnumbered nights, sky at once chalk and blackboard, dog's nose wet on my calf. You've snored all night, but in the morning you'll tell me that you haven't slept. The quality of grey, unseen. Jacob waited 7 years for Rachel, and I waited 7 years. We've rejigged history all our lives. Postscript nights. Blue leadwood bristling at the cult in the local church. Last cornflowers fluffing the descant. Truth beaten so fine we can see right through it. Waged on our mother's skies. Your son's face as he is lifted from his tiara of cement. On those who died rather than witness this. Our great choir. Confessional nights. Look at the moon. It sows in couplets. Hear the light, how it listens for what it can leave out. You have to offer hope. Like the diplomat, with his ceasefire of hurricanes. No, like two sisters texting each other through the city's gruel grey dark. Are you okay? Yes. Are you? And I'm just going to finish with an extract from Mahmoud Darwish's In the Presence of Absence. It was published in Arabic in 2006 and translated by Sinan Antoun in 2011. It's an elegy for his homeland, for Palestine, and for his own personal loves and for his life. And this extract is about longing. Longing is a scar inside the heart and a country's fingerprint on the body. But no one longs for his wound. No one longs for pain or nightmare, but for what was before. For a time when there was no pain except of primary pleasures that melt time, like a sugar cube in a cup of tea. It rarely comes in the morning, and it rarely interferes in a passing conversation with a taxi driver, intrudes in a conference hall or on the first date. It is the evening guest, arriving when you look for your own traces in what is around you and cannot find them, when a sparrow perches on the balcony and seems to be a message from a country you did not love when you were in it, as you love it now, that it is in you. It was granted, a tree, a rock. It became the address of a soul and an idea, an ember in language. It was air, earth, and water, and it became a poem. Longing is the groaning of right when incapable of providing proof of the might of right before the might of oppression. The groaning of homes buried beneath settlements that the absent bequeathed to the absent and the present to the absent, with the first drop of milk in exile and in refugee camps. Longing is the sound of silk rising in mutual groaning from the mulberry to the one longing for it. It is the convergence of conscious and unconscious instinct. It is lost time, protesting the sadism of the present. Longing is an ache that does not long to ache. It is the aching stirred by pure air coming from a distant mountaintop, the ache of searching for a past happiness. But it is a healthy kind of ache because it reminds us that we are afflicted with hope and are sentimental. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And with that, I think we're going to bring the evening to a close. I want to say huge thank you again to all of our speakers. This has been, I think I speak for everyone when I say that all of your contributions have been so deeply moving, and it's really been just an honor to share this evening with you all. Thank you to Haymarket Books for supporting and streaming this event on YouTube. And again to White Kite Collective just for bringing together such a brilliant program of speakers. As Books Against Borders, we will try to compile a list of all the readings that we've heard tonight. And the recording of this event will be available on YouTube for people to watch after. So please do share that with anyone who wasn't able to make it tonight. We just wanted to say a final reminder that all of the links that you can see on screen now and that are on the event page and will be in the description to donate to the organizations and families that we're supporting will continue to be live after this event. So please do continue to share them around. And yeah, just a final thank you again from all of us for being with us this evening. We want to send love and solidarity to all of our siblings in Gaza and across Palestine. And I really hope that the messages that we've heard tonight can be kept in our hearts and yeah, be used to inspire us to continue this ongoing fight for the freedom of all Palestinian people. Thank you so much and have a lovely rest of your evening.